guys, welcome back to Colicchio's Classroom. In today's lesson, we're going to be talking about the Age of Enlightenment as well as how it affected the American Revolution. We're going to be talking about four major philosophers who really examined government and the way that its relationship with the people had changed from the late 1600s into the late 1700s. So follow me as we journey through looking at these four gentlemen.
Let's get ready to rumble!
And so the first person we're going to look at is good old Thomas Hobbes. He was born in 1588, but his work really didn't take off until he wrote his main work, which was called Leviathan in 1651. He decided that he wanted to understand why people let other people govern them, and he also wanted to see what the best type of government was. Well, in Leviathan, he writes about how the monarchy is probably the perfect type of government, okay? Because the monarchy, there's one person who can make all the decisions rather than letting people decide for themselves. See, Hobbes believed that the monarchy was good and democracy is bad. He said that humans are evil and selfish and they shouldn't be able to decide what to do in terms of the government, but rather have one person decide for them. Now, it is a little bit tricky. It's not so black and white, unfortunately. He did believe that there was the establishment of what's called a social contract, which is, think of a contract, okay? You have to fulfill your needs, and your employer will fulfill their needs. In this case, the king and the subjects are signing a contract together, and we're going to talk about this later with Rousseau and John Locke, but the idea is that the king has to fulfill the needs of its subjects, or else revolution might happen. So that's pretty much all we have for Hobbes. The next person we're going to be talking about is Jean Rousseau. And Jean Rousseau was French, and he's much later, almost 100 years later than Thomas Hobbes was. And, Rousseau is this Renaissance man. He's a musician, he's a botanist, he's a philosopher. Rousseau believes that science and art and social institutions are corrupting mankind. And unfortunately, we need a government that isn't corrupting us like everything else is. Rousseau piggybacks off Hobbes' idea of this social contract, that people are ruled because they are protected by the government. They will let you rule them so long as you protect them from foreign invaders or from domestic threats. The primary idea of this social contract, will go into the Declaration of Independence. This idea that we rebel against King George III in Parliament because they aren't protecting us and they don't protect our best interests. So, where Hobbes is all pro-monarchy, Rousseau tends to be a little more democratic. He understands this idea more that the people have the power, where Hobbes believes that, hey, the monarchy should have the power. So that's two down. Let's talk about the next.
You gotta keep them separated.
This guy we're going to be talking about is Baird Montesquieu, and if you can't tell from his name, he's from France. So Baird Montesquieu wrote a book called The Spirit of Laws, and he basically wrote it to show how a government would work the most efficiently. And he found out that there's three forms of government. Number one, a monarchy. Number two, a republic. And number three, a despotism government, which is a dictator, essentially. He examined all three forms of government and said, the best form is probably a republic, one in which you elect your officials. He favors a republican government, and he also decides that there's this great idea of separation of powers so that one branch of government doesn't have too much power. That sounds familiar because that's the way our government is set up, okay? You have the three branches, executive, legislative, and judicial. Each of them can overrule the other, and one doesn't have more power than the other. Okay? So, Baird Montesquieu, very important. How do you remember that? Well, Baird Montesquieu. His name is really long and hard to pronounce, so you should separate it. Kinda like separation of powers. Ooh, got you a joke there, didn't I? Alright, so the next guy we're going to be talking about is John Locke. No, not him. He's John Locke from Laws. I'm talking about John Locke, the English philosopher of freedom. You know why there are no knock-knock jokes on freedom? Because freedom always rings. But yeah, it's a terrible joke, but I digress. Anyways, John Locke wrote two essays, one being Essays of Concerning Human Understanding, and two treatises on civil government. Both really had to deal with freedom and human rights that are unalienable and cannot be infringed upon on the government. Those freedoms being life, liberty, and property. John Locke, I call it the 3 L's of John Locke: the life, liberty, and land, just so it's easier to remember since land is technically property. John Locke came up with this crazy idea that humans are born and we have a blank slate, and it's the environment around us that shapes us. And so it's our blank canvas to draw on. We should be able to choose our religion. We should be able to buy our own land. We're supposed to have our freedom that this government can't touch. Okay? And we look at today, and these are the ideas that go into the Declaration of Independence. Okay? You know, we should not be denied life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's right. Thomas Jefferson was a huge fan of John Locke. Huge fan. How we have posters of our favorite artists and musicians and athletes on our walls, I'm pretty sure good old Thomas Jefferson had a John Locke poster above his bed. Okay? Dude was insane about him. He loved everything he read. And so we have John Locke, who was pretty much the main proponent of the Declaration of Independence. So that's it. I hope you guys learned about these 4 philosophers, because they really did play a huge part in shaping the government that we have now. Or else, who knows? It might have still been a big part of England. Thanks for joining me.